Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Let's give a big round of applause for the Choreic period. Yay! Tonight we have Latif, Askia and Deshpande here with us tonight to celebrate the Choreic period. But before we get started, I want to point out some very quick logistics. The bathroom is right there next to the Moleskine spinner. We are going to be doing a hand-raised audience Q&A at the end of the conversation. So start thinking of questions for that. And then after, we will be giving a big round of applause, and then Latif will be signing books at the table near where you checked in to the side there. And then if you're joining us virtually, please click the link in your description to grab a copy of the book. I speak for all of us in our events team here that it is just such a thrill for us whenever we get to celebrate poetry here at Books Through Magic. This is just a true wonder of a book. I was so moved and incredibly inspired by it, awed, and I know you all will or already have been. So Latif Askia is a poet with Choreic cerebral palsy from Brooklyn, New York. He received his MFA in creative writing from Columbia University and was the print poetry editor for the Columbia Journal's 61st issue. He is the author of Machine Code of a Bleeding Moon, and his work appears in Poetry Magazine and many other publications. Deshpande is the author of Love the Stranger, Yes Yes Books, and the chapbooks The Rest of the Body, Yes Yes Books, and The Umbrian Sonnets. His poems have appeared in American Poetry Review, New England Review, Agni, Denver Quarterly, and elsewhere. He's the winner of the 2015 Scotty Merrill Memorial Award and the recipient of a Wallace Stegner Fellowship in Poetry, a Kundiman Fellowship, and residencies at Cittadella Ranieri. That's Italian. I'm like, whoa. Salton Still Arts Colony and Vermont Studio Center. Jay holds degrees from Harvard and Columbia. He leads the Brooklyn Poets Mentorship Program and teaches in the MFA programs at Sarah Lawrence College and Columbia University. So please give a big, big applause for both of these amazing poets.
Sure, gladly. Where should we go?
The first like 9 years paid.
Are you paid?
Yeah,
Oh, sure.
thank you everyone for coming. We came near and far, so I appreciate you being here to celebrate this book with me. I think I was about to really introduce the book that much. I just didn't read it, and I would encourage you to just experience it however you want to. Don't focus on trying to understand or get it. It's really just a book about feeling the body and experiencing language through the body. So, hope you enjoy this reading. If you have the book, I'm starting on page 10. So, Van Week Avri. In doing this, we become more like him, which isn't much of anything. Our hands like beetles curve into form. Much better. He will hum along like this, clasping his right wrist with his left hand. It's a wonder how he gets his pants on every morning. one level at a time. It's almost underwhelming. Once he took the stage. After each poem he read, his professor would read it over so the audience wouldn't miss anything. He gave his permission, of course. He gives his permission to anyone who asks. Here he comes now, spelunking. Just ask. Here is. Here's the cup of water you placed me in. I have finally become a straw. He nods enthusiastically. And the poem I read it on page 17. Neuf août. Dear Khadi. It's not depression, but something a little more orange. That I lie in bed naked before turning off the music in order to realize how tired I am of what Hardy. I think I'm headed in the right direction when I wake up and put my clothes on. When I wake up and open the shade. The people out there say they love me, but none of it uncomplicates the way I saw myself in the mirror today. My pink shorts, all bunched up like that. It's not self-hatred, but another color, thin and far, almost unclear. She started to cry in front of the pizzeria on Fifth Avenue. She wasn't sad. She had just finished explaining something to me. She had explained it perfectly. The next one is on page 24. 7 Avril. This opponent says something about karmaless doingless action, or pulling a tire from very high above. Mom cuts the potatoes and they cut it in slices. He gets a ruler to prove it. Before risking the thin moment, she's yours. And I put it on page 31. Analysis. Things may be getting worse. The crane, for example, against the sky. You enter with your eyes first, measuring things. Before you bring in the rest of the body, strange at last, cram into the back of the cab. Through slight adjustment, there can be a slight relief. Along the river, parallel, the sun caught and reflected, waiting for the day of rest. The doctor suggests Parkinson's medication. But person am I, in which a part of you must temporarily die. The world unhooking itself and considering things. The security guard pushes passport through a small metal box. Pray to your hand them more. God adds as she slips the egg into my mouth. And this one is on page 38. Syntax. I'm not here to accommodate you. I shove my feet into the metal box I'm given and smile. One foot is a fish, the other is a rat bat. This poem is a tribal war, an oval cycle, a grazing poodle widens his jaw until it snaps. English is acting her price down the gully of my back. The world crippled, live with me as a yapping Naga dog. I read it often, I read it into form. My mother's tongue, come to lick me. I felt a tongue hinting at the roof of my mouth. What is the value of And there's one on page 49. This one is very kind of special because it's, when I started writing the collection, I was writing these poems to someone named Caddy, which people ask me who she is, but I'm not sure. So this is the first poem I wrote to her. Dear Hubby, it's tiring to sit here. It's tiring not to sit here. If you wanted to sum up my life, tired, to cover a lot of ground. At first I thought it was my disability. I thought everything was due to this, my lack of drive, my shiftless quality. My parents are afraid that if I keep going like this, I will wither away. And I'll be devoured alive about my own passivity. The proliferation of my debilitation. You remember the story of Siddhartha sitting under the tree by the river after running with those sages, after renunciation, after he was nothing but rib, caged and lit. The farm girl came and gave him a bowl of rice. Then he was finally able to extinguish passivity as the door to my disability, which here means something strange and familiar, like your belly button. Caddy, when was the last time you felt your own belly button? You can tell me. For real. The sight hardly is always the body. I'm gonna read the last one. The second to last.
Okay, cool. I was hoping.
This one is on page 64. Forward. I began this practice over a year ago of only using periods to write poetry. In the following snapshots of this practice, I invite you into my body, your body, the disability, the intake of the world. This practice is not mine. The disability is not mine. It is ours. You feed me, for example, aiming skillfully or unskillfully at my moving mouth. Sometimes I knock the spoon over. The rice gets everywhere, and you get frustrated. Sometimes I knock the spoon over. The rice gets everywhere, and I get frustrated. Sometimes I knock the spoon over. The rice gets everywhere, and we laugh. This practice doesn't ameliorate, deal with address or get at the disability. This practice is our exhabilitation. It doesn't blind the disabled, the able-bodied eye. It doesn't deafen the able-bodied ear. It doesn't numb the able-bodied tongue. It doesn't palsy the able-bodied fingers. And it doesn't clear the able-bodied thought. This practice occurs beyond the able-bodied. The Choreic period begins and ends with the body, core body. This practice exists at English, at happiness, at hardness, never to have a disability, never to have a disorder, never to have a condition. I want you to join me in the practice of not having. With every period, we relinquish the thing that we have and not the thing that we do, the thing that we be. I do the disability good. I disable and laugh. I am big suffering. I cripple forward into bed. I become the word. I become the verb you have yet to name. We begin always with the period, not at the end of the sentence where it is often gathered, but in the beginning, in the middle, along the sides, on top of the periodos, rounding and rounding until the sentence is the open wound it leaves behind, it slips into. This practice keeps me, so that I can tell you the name of my disability, like the name of my old friend. Please meet scoliosis. Please meet ethitosis. Please meet Claire. Please meet cannot sleep tonight. In each position taken up, with budding into my unique deterioration. With each period, I hand you my disability. Can you hold it without having? Can you touch it without grasping? Can you know it without understanding?
Can I hold on to it? Should I put it
You can put it back.
bang back? Yes, okay. All right. Okay. Latif, thank you so much for reading. That was so gorgeous to hear, and I feel like I got the best seat in the house for it too, so I'm grateful for that. Can you all hear me okay? Is this all right with them? Okay, great. It's nice to see all these familiar faces here and this convening of folks here and online to celebrate this book. I had the privilege also of kind of first getting to experience the Choreic period in having an extended conversation with Latif about the work. So I kind of want to just get to do more of that, and we can sort of continue that now. I think maybe one of the places that I want to start and see where we go is, I guess I'll move off of my own experience reading the work and reading the work on the page and not getting to hear it in Latif's voice. And I think that something that can happen, especially in looking at form on the page, is this attendance on the intellectualization of what's happening, or thinking about how you theorize what's happening, which can get very far away actually from the body. And so I kind of wanted to just explore with you starting out, where this also comes out of very real lived realities in the body, before there's anything aesthetic happening there in some ways. And so maybe wherever you want to go with that, but especially for how you first came to these poems, starting with Deshpande, how it started to form for you and what that was like.
So I guess I think when I first started to write it was when I was in the MFA program at Columbia, and I was taking a class with B.K. Fisher, the Kama Sutra, where she talked about grammar and sort of how to use grammar in your writing. And it was just a whole semester talking about grammar. And one of the readings that we did was a reading by Gertrude Stein, which she's a poet in the 20s. She was writing, but my dates are really bad, so don't quote me on the. But the essay that I read was about punctuation, and she was basically had really. I just thought the essay was really funny because she had all these really strong emotional opinions about punctuation marks, and I was like, wow. That's kind of wild. I want to get to that point. Well, one of the things she said was commas are basically useless, and periods have all this attitude, and she said periods are time, their own time, which is really interesting. And that's why I got the idea to think about I read Gertrude Stein poetry, and she does use commas. So I was like, well, what is this? So I was like, I want to actually put this to the test, because I kind of agree with her somewhat, periods are really interesting, and I love them. So I did, and it really, at that point, it didn't really have to do with disability or anything. It was just playful. Let me just see where this goes. And after a while of writing like that, it became something more. I mean, it developed into its own language, its own being, I guess.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I like it as a being. That's terrific. That the way you say that too makes that distinction between what could be, if it's pertaining to disability, that it's serious, versus what's playful, right? Which is an interesting thing, because there's so much that is so playful throughout what this is doing when it's in its most serious moments too. And just thinking about the humor as you were reading too, like the moments where something doubles back on itself or corrects or undercuts, which has a lot to do with punctuation and with enjambment. Like how can space make that happen too? That also feels like it's about timing. And the thing that Stein is saying about periods and time seems also really curious for this. I wonder if you can talk about, I guess, a few different kinds of time, and I'll ask you more time questions, I think. But the sense for what the compositional process was like and the time you spent writing the book, and maybe also about how time is occurring for you in the poems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think I was, the writing of this manuscript was I think over a 2-year period. It was basically during the time I was in the MFA program, which is about 2 years. So it was just, and it's hard to say. I think I'm going to go back and correct myself. So it's hard to say that it wasn't about disability in the beginning, because it's hard to separate, obviously, right? Everything that I write is, even if it's not talking about disability, is about disability, and it's also not, like, I don't know if that makes sense, but, yeah, the time, I was basically, after I sort of enjoyed it in the beginning, it became a sort of a daily practice where I would just, the goal was to just write anything every day and use this punctuation style to do it. So, and I ended up just writing like this exclusively for a long time, which, I mean, I really recommend, like, people, if you feel like you're stuck with your art or anything, or just stuck in general, just having this practice to come back to every day, just to ground you there. And that's what it was for me. I wasn't really thinking about a collection in any sort of serious, like, capacity. It was just like, oh, time to write a poem today. And it didn't even have to be like, it didn't really have to be regimented or anything. I wrote, by the time I was in my thesis workshop and, like, compiling this with Alan, I had so many poems in this style. Like, I think the Word document was like 100 pages of collected poems. So, and they weren't all good. So, but that was, but to me, I guess what was really helpful is that this whole thing helped me get out of thinking about poetry as, oh, this is a good poem and this is a bad poem, and this is what I want to do and this is what I don't want to do. It's kind of helpful to just say, oh, I'm just gonna write. I'm just gonna write this today and use my period and that's it.
As you did that though, did a sense for what the period was meaning to you change?
Yeah, for sure. In the beginning, I had no idea what I was doing. And it was just like, it felt very gimmicky and like this silly thing that I'm doing. But as it progressed, the first thing that I saw was how it was breaking up the lines. And sort of just like breaking up the line in ways that I never had the control to do, like these sort of endearment or syntactical units became sort of like really luminous with the period, just because of, I think it's because of the period and the capital letter. For me, it was like, oh wow, this is I can see these parts of the whole syntactical structure, and this is really powerful.
Yeah.
So I think that's the first thing that I was sort of like, and that sort of it gave me a sense of rhythm and musicality and this the period as the sort of like a marker, like a musical marker, or a note or something like that. And then I think at the same time, alright, so at the same time, I think I was seeing that the period was becoming a sort of point where what it was sort of like a hinge, like a hinging point where you could switch into some other thought. It was like I made the move a lot in the book where I'm talking about one thing and then period, and then I go transition into something completely different. So it was sort of like a bridge or like a catalyst for transformation within that same sentence or within the same thought. Not an end of the thought, but like a sort of like propelling forward into something else. The- and the- and and on top of that, it became a sort of obviously the major theme in the book. Also, the like involuntary movements, and I mean, it's a major theme in the book and in my life. So the sort of like the period becoming a sort of spasm is one interpretation of what the period could be. But also, I mean, it had this weird like dialectic where when I was writing this, I felt like the the period became the spasm, but also since the period had all these other transformative qualities, the spasm also took on those qualities in my life. And I think that's the power of this poetry and what poetry can do. And like, oh, I see that the involuntary movements are actually could be, obviously, it can be a source of suffering, but also a source of creativity, a source of renewal, transformation, pause, all the things that the period became.
Yeah. That's so beautiful the way you said it. You were talking before about what felt like, oh, I had no intention of writing a kind of like, this is going to be my master's thesis, this is going to be a book, it's going to be a project in some way. But that idea of intentionality is so important when you think about the spasmodic movement too, and what that, like, the ideas of as you follow something. Like, what you just said also made me think about there's this idea that the British psychoanalyst D.W. Winnicott has about spontaneous gesture. And he uses it in terms of ideas of play and playing, especially in childhood, but beyond. But the notion is that gesture taken broadly, like whatever gesture might be, becomes, when it's not intended or intended to communicate something, the site of creativity and of like new possibility there. And all the ways that, I mean, you're naming how the use of the period on the page becomes, you're saying beginnings and endings, and you're saying a hinge. It also seems like there's such an active space at every period that's occurring for you as a reader about whether we're following a thought through continuously, like if it's syntactically bound to what came before, or if it's moving into new territory. And that possibility of a turn on the level of the sentence or a fragment of a sentence seems like, yeah, there's so many different places that it can go at once. Like you're bringing the reader into that space of possibility. That's really remarkable. So the way that you started to see what was happening on the page was then inflecting also how you were experiencing it bodily in some sense too, as you wrote.
Yeah, and what you just said about the this new possibility that it created too. I was also thinking that this was a way to have the reader right there with me, like I didn't want. I don't really. I'm not really into the idea of sort of authority as an author. Like, this is my work and this is how you should interpret it, blah, blah, blah. Like, I just want you to, I want you to do something. Like, I don't want passive readers, I want active readers, and I want your input and your own experience, world experience and knowledge that you bring to the poetry is as valuable as the poetry itself. It creates the poetry. I think that for me, that's what I try to do with this book. Like, yeah, I think also, yeah, there was that dialogue between the actual body and the body, my actual body and the body of work, and sort of this meeting point. And I guess this is the thing that sort of was in the back of my mind was that I was, well, like a year before I started writing poetry, I started studying Buddhism and practicing meditation and things like that. And but I never really separated the two. So both practices to me are in conversation, and it's hard to separate. And I think that the main issue, or not issue, but the interesting thing about like going, if you've never been into like a meditation hall with other people, it's like this very quiet room where everything is silent, and you sit there for like 30 minutes to an hour. But I have involuntary movements, so I feel like I'm the loudest one in there, so naturally, and I'm already sort of insecure, so naturally it was a sort of like, it forced me to sort of confront these movements. So, in a way, that's sort of like, what the book is also exploring. It's like, well, how do if I had to live with it, like, how I guess the question is like, I have growing up in society, obviously an ableist society, my understanding of my own body can be harmful to myself, you know. So how do you create new understanding? So this was sort of something that I was working through in the collection, especially how do you create that? And like, how do you, I mean, the collection is there, but I'm sort of trying to honor what I wrote down. Still practicing what I wrote down. And it's not easy just to say, oh yeah. And it's interesting to sort of balance the two cliches, the two disability cliches of like, oh, disability is a curse or that you bear, and that's how you should look at it. And the opposite is the other cliche is like disability is beautiful and everything's wonderful and whatever. It's like, no, I mean, it's just like everything else in life. It's complicated.
Yeah. I think that also comes with that, especially back to what you're saying about not controlling the reader experience, but making that space for new meanings to form, or for you to help them form and allow for somebody to do what they will with it. Like the first poem you read has that point where poignantly he reads the poem and the professor reads the poem afterwards to make sure no one misses anything, right? It's so arched, this idea of like control for meanings and what kind of, but alongside those extremes of disability is a curse and disability is beautiful, there's also what comes with that is, I think, or can come with that, is this internalized sense of needing to explain or translate for the able-bodied reader, the imagined able-bodied reader, to like do some work of interpretation, or even to control enough to create like a consistent form, like the way that this is always going to work will be one thing. And yeah, I'm curious how you think about how you navigate around that too.
Yeah, and I don't think I guess the funny thing is like this idea of I guess, yeah, first of all, I just try to write I just try to write for my own, for myself, like, for practice sake, like, okay, I'm gonna write to explore the thing that I need to explore. I mean, I didn't, that's how I started writing poetry. I was a computer science major, so it was very like, oh, I need to do this. So I think that sort of energy, it's a blessing that I could continue to tap into that, where it's like, oh, okay, I still need to do this. So this need to just express, I think, is important. And not so, like I would bring this into a workshop, and I use a lot of different languages in this poetry, in this book. And so one of the languages is Wolof, which is a language that they speak in Senegal. And when I was writing the book, Google Translate didn't have Wolof, but they added it. So a lot of people, when I would add Wolof into my poetry, I would get comments like, oh, like, can we get a glossary? Can we understand it? Can you italicize this word? Like, and I mean, I was pretty adamant about not doing any of that. And it was just like, I'm writing a book about disability. And you don't want to be uncomfortable for 1 second. I think it's kind of, you just have to believe in what you're doing. And I mean, the truth is, the words from other languages, and the strange turns of phrases that I'm using, and what we would describe as sort of like language that goes against the conventions of meaning and meaning making. They don't really feel like that to me. They just feel like I'm communicating. Like, that's the best way for me to communicate with one. And the communication isn't always logical, analytical meaning, but there's other ways to create meaning, there's other ways to communicate with people. And it sort of ties into it, also my lived experience, like, since my father was from Senegal, me and my brother don't speak Wolof, and I don't speak it fluently at all. So I think I grew up around languages that I don't understand. So for me, it's sort of normal to just someone said something in a random language and you're just like, okay. Like, I'll figure it out. It's fine. I fully get what you're saying. But that's the same spirit there.
I think for time we should switch over to Q&A. Is that all right with you?
Yeah.
Yeah? So we've got some questions from the audience. Yeah,
My kids tell me I use quotation marks way too much. Do you have a feeling about quotation marks? Do you have a feeling about periods?
the question is, do you have a feeling about quotation marks and periods?
I'm not a quotation mark hater. I mean, quotation mark. It feels like quotation marks are interesting because it's dialogue, or you're quoting. It's like an excerpt from something else. They both have that quality of being transplanted. The problem with this book is I couldn't use any quotation marks, because then I would break the rules. No. When somebody would talk, you don't actually need quotation marks. But if you just say he said this, or whatever he said, I think you would understand that the reader, that the person says the thing, but the real quotation marks have their own feeling, they have their own style. They're valid.
I'll tell my children.
Congratulations on your book.
Thank you.
Publication's such an interesting point in time of creation, and I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the experience of feeling done with a poem, or rewriting it, or collecting. How do you feel ready to present?
Yeah.
I'll just repeat it quickly for you too. So the question is about publication and how you feel in being done and ready to present the poem, or what that process is like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it stresses me out. It's hard. But like, it's its own creative process too. I would say that you really need help to do that. I don't think you can do that by yourself. I have poems that I don't like, and then I show them to people, and they're like, "Oh, you need to put this in." I go, "What do you do? What do you do?" And then they explain it, and I can't unsee it. I'm like, "Oh, how did I not see that?" But that's for everybody. I mean, writing is sort of writing. Is a sort of advertised or conceptualized as an individual process, an individualistic process, but it's not. It's a communal process. And you need other people to. It's valuable to have a team to help you. And I was lucky for this manuscript that I had my professors. And then the publisher, the publishing team was also really gracious and attentive to my work, and they believed in my work. But I would say that it's just once I assembled all the poems that I written over the 2-year period, there was a sort of a story there that I was trying to feel out. So when I was putting it together, it was a sort of like, of creating that story or combining those themes that were scattered all over the place.
Other questions?
When you collected the works together and you decided on this story ultimately to tell, was there another like story underneath or other story that you felt was like competing with it to tell?
So when you collected this, was there another story beyond this? No. Was there another story in addition to it, or something underneath that was present?
I don't think so. It wasn't like a traditional story with a beginning, a middle, and end. It was more like a feeling, or like a sort of like one of my, it's hard to describe, but the poems that didn't make it, I think some of them felt too. I think the thing that I was looking for was the voice in the book was consistent. But it felt like the voice was developing and the voice was getting at something overall.
Got time for one more question?
Yeah.
Hi. So I'm stuck on this idea of the period as like a hinge, and I'm curious. I guess this is like on super practical level. I'm curious if the periods were all going in as you were composing the first draft, or if you were sometimes going back and adding them in. And I guess I'm like trying to wrap my head around like in what ways the periods sort of change the words around them, or like the clauses before and after. Like what sort of energetic changes did you see them having on the words that came around the period?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll try. That's a beautiful question. Beautiful question. On like how periods are functioning as hinges and where they came in the compositional process before and after, and then energetically how they changed what was around. Is that kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they went in as I was writing them. So that's what was really important to the writing of the book. They were like, my writing of the poems were crucial to the poems themselves. It was sort of like a dance, it's a choreography that I'm sort of living and writing, and then sometimes when I was editing, often like other people would say, "Oh, you should put a period right here." I'm like, yeah, that's great. So other people were learning how to use the period and seeing new possibilities with the way of writing that I didn't even see, which was really interesting. I think that in terms of like energy, I felt like the period does charge in both directions. Especially if you have sometimes for example, I would put one word between two periods. I mean, that word has all the energy in the poem. So it moves, it works bi-directionally. And it's not always, it slows down, but it also it stores the energy and pushes you forward, I think.
Does it also have like the? Did you also get inspired from like the spacing of the words, where you like would put a word and then you would space, and then have a word there, so you had like that time in between the words? Was that also something that inspired the periods?
Did the spacing between the words also inspire the periods? Or
this poet Larry Eigner, who also has cerebral palsy, he uses spaces. The way that he spaces out his poetry is really unique. He uses a lot of spaces, and I read a lot of his work. So I think you're seeing that I was using the periods as sometimes I would use the actual space in the poems. After reading a lot of his work, but yeah, the periods do have that quality of creating empty space, and also like making empty space full, or like charged.
fantastic. Latif, thank you so much. This is really wonderful, and for everybody, read this book. It's really wonderful.
Thank you all so much again. Congratulations on this book. We are going to have everyone pick up their things from the chairs because we're going to start putting them away, and then we will have Latif over here signing and chatting. And yeah, thank you all so much for coming. And if you're on the live stream, please buy the book in the link in your description. Thank you so much.